Hi everyone, and welcome back to Lemon Dew. I'm Brie, and in today's episode I'm going to be talking about the infantilization of autistic individuals, more so autistic women. So without further ado, let's begin. So the term infantilization relates to treating autistic individuals like children. So in a sense, this involves acting as if they have no understanding of the real world, which is completely untrue considering that individuals with autism process bits of information differently with their own interpretation. Either that, or in most cases, autistic individuals are often treated as completely incapable of making decisions on their own. So to most neurotypicals, if you have autism, you don't have the ability to make life-changing choices, you don't have any form of agency, let alone individuality. You are just kind of there to exist for convenience. Now, I guess the reason why infantilization is normalized is primarily because you have a lack of understanding of autism. So even now, despite having things like Autism Awareness Week, there isn't enough done to raise awareness. So it's almost as if, in a sense, you just have this 1 week or maybe one day where you discuss the subject and then you just kind of move on, which really irritates me. Now, of course, as I've mentioned in previous episodes, especially episodes where I've talked about my experiences of growing up with autism, I've had many instances in life where I've been underestimated by a lot of people. I have unfortunately been underestimated by teachers, more so during my educational years in secondary school, as well as extended family. And although there were instances where some people would consider me to be smart, there were others who would be very patronizing towards me, talking down to me in a tone which would pretty much insinuate that because I was autistic, or in the case of my extended family members, more so on my dad's side, because I was the youngest out of my cousins and autistic, I knew nothing and I had to, I guess, stay in my place, so to say. Now, there were instances where even in school, mainly secondary school, teachers would try to challenge me. So in a sense, I've unfortunately had experiences where, for example, if I was writing some text in an exercise book and I used certain terminology, I would have teachers asking me, even in front of the class, which actually has happened before, if I understood what certain words meant. And they would assume that I copied something from the internet when really I didn't, because I read books quite often, I read newspapers from an early age, and I guess it was like they would assume that I was just completely stupid. And I've even had experiences where extended family members would call me that, mostly my dad's mother, who unfortunately was my grandmother on his side of the family. And even in my teens as well, there were experiences where extended family would assume I couldn't make decisions on my own. So for example, when I was 18 and I would drink alcohol during family events, I wouldn't really drink much, I would just have maybe 1 or 2 glasses of wine. And in the UK, of course, when you're 18, legally you can drink. I would have older cousins or even uncles lecturing me about drinking and saying that I was too young and all of this, when really the ironic thing was they were alcoholics and they were useless parents towards their own children. And for me personally, the way I would see the situation is I would feel, I guess, inadequate, because when I went through experiences of being infantilized, my self-esteem would decline, And I would feel that I wasn't smart enough or I wasn't good enough no matter how hard I tried. And knowing that there were situations where unfortunately I had experienced things like this, I guess it would make me question everything I was doing in my life. And now I unfortunately have developed a mentality where I can be defensive because I have to continuously prove that I'm just as capable of making my own decisions and that I have certain skills and capabilities that people might not even think that I have. And even with secondary education, as well as growing up around family, there were experiences where people would act like they would try to help me when their help was just unsolicited advice that I didn't even ask for. So for example, in secondary school back in year 11, I had an experience as a 16-year-old where I was doing science work in my class, and I would constantly have this one assistant teacher ask me every few seconds, "Do you need help? Do you need help?" using that type of patronizing tone when clearly I didn't need help. And some of my peers would even say that I was being followed around and I could hear them, and it just made me feel completely stupid. And at this time as well, I couldn't really say that I was autistic. They had no idea. I mean, I had close friends in school that knew I was autistic, but most of my peers in my classes didn't know, and I couldn't tell them because I didn't feel comfortable. And I've had experiences in my teens especially where people would just ask me, "Are you disabled?" or just pretty much react in a very ignorant manner. And because of this type of situation, I was very uncomfortable in my class, and I even had to explain to the Senko that I didn't want the assistant teacher in my science classes because the experience I had made me feel very inadequate. And even with family members as well, they would try to force me to do things that I didn't want to do, or like help me, in their words or whatever, make decisions where socialization was concerned. So because being quiet was such an issue, they would try to force me to socialize and force me to make decisions where I had to attend family events and I had to act like somebody else that I wasn't. And unfortunately for autistic people, especially autistic women, there is this constant expectation to mask autistic traits. And I think with women it's very prevalent because there is more of an expectation to present yourself a certain way. And this doesn't really occur as much for men. So I don't know, maybe it's due to personal experiences, but as an autistic woman, I have always felt that I've had to act a certain way and dress a certain way. So it's almost like I'm wearing a mask, and that mask is made of plastic or silicone, and it's very suffocating, and I can't peel it off until I go to a safe place where I can actually be myself without experiencing judgment. Now, when it comes to infantilization, I guess one thing I do notice is you have lots of misinterpretations of what autism actually is, which doesn't really help. So you do have instances where in mainstream media, for example, and just to note, I am actually going to release an episode at some point where I talk about representation of autism in mainstream media, mainly movies or television shows, and even manga comics as well. So going back to my earlier point, you do have poor representations of autism in mainstream media, which doesn't help where infantilization is concerned. And of course, as I mentioned a few times, these kinds of misrepresentations make people believe that autistic individuals behave in one way. So it's almost like you're putting everyone in a box, and this does not help. And examples of this include Sia's controversial film Music, and I have watched clips of it, and I was not happy with what I saw, I will tell you that now. And of course, infantilization can technically apply to other disabilities as well. So whether physical or hidden, unfortunately, you have instances where lots of people with disabilities experience infantilization, which I just feel is just absolutely sad, more so in the sense that people think because you have something, it means, oh, you can't do something in life, when really you can. You just may need to put extra effort. Now, when going through infantilization as well, for individuals with autism, not only are you spoken to like a child or a baby, your needs and opinions become dismissed. So if I had certain needs, extended family, for example, at least going through personal experiences, would dismiss those needs. So if, say, I cried or got upset because, I don't know, I was like verbally abused or something, which was very jarring as a child, I would get yelled at. And sometimes, unfortunately, there were experiences where this used to happen, and this was my dad's family that I'm referring to, and my dad would be there and would just sort of stick up for his family, and it's like, I would hate that because I clearly was in a form of distress and I needed somebody to advocate for me. I needed that because being a child and being abused in any way, you have no idea what on earth is happening because you're not able to sort of register the fact that what you're going through is not normal. I mean, maybe you pick up that something is wrong, which is what happened with me, but I guess until my late teens I didn't realise that what I was going through wasn't normal. And even in public as well, you have lots of strange experiences for autistic individuals. So I remember reading something on Reddit, I think this was for autism in women, where an individual was actually given a kids menu in a restaurant due to them mentioning they were autistic to a waiter, and that just comes off very strange. I mean, for me personally, if I'm eating at a restaurant, I wouldn't really say to somebody that I was autistic, but then again, you can kind of understand why people with autism probably say they're autistic, because they want you to understand that they have autism and that they process things or deal with certain things differently. And I even had an experience in public where I was hanging out with a friend who is autistic like myself, so level 1 autistic to be more specific, and I was once mistaken for their carer. And it was an embarrassing experience, not just for myself, but for her as well, because it's like, for fuck's sake, why would you assume that she's not capable of doing things for herself? It's just, it's just absolutely wrong. And seeing situations like that as well makes me feel uncomfortable when other people experience infantilization, as in autistic people, because it's like, I don't know, I think the way I sort of see situations like this is that it just really bothers me when people think that because you have a disability that you can't achieve certain things in life, and you can't even do the basics like, I don't know, cleaning your room. Now, I understand not everybody who has a disability can do certain things, and it's okay because everyone is different and certain things in life may take others a longer time to do. But what is important when it comes to, I guess, being around autistic individuals, at least from my perspective, is that it's very important to listen to them and to listen to their views and to acknowledge what they need. And it is important for individuals with autism, to be able to make decisions in life, because when you have that agency where you can make decisions for yourself, it helps increase your self-esteem and confidence, because you not only have that ability to make decisions, but you can try things and figure out for yourself if they work out. And when it comes to life, for me personally, I am a firm believer of having the right to choose what you want to do and what you want to accomplish in life. I don't really like telling people what to do with their life. I mean, regardless of whether you're autistic or not, I just don't like telling people what to do with their life, mainly because I've had that experience before and I wouldn't want to do that to somebody else. So if, say, I have a friend coming up to me asking me for advice, I can give advice when required, but at the same time, you can't expect me to tell you what to do in life. You know, it's up to you to make decisions. Whatever benefits you, that is what's best. And as a great chef, Marco Pierre White, has always said, which is a quote I like to go by, it's your choice. So when he does his little cooking shows or videos and he uses his Knorr stock pot and he puts his various ingredients in, he always says it's your choice. And that is a very important quote, because whatever you do in life and whatever decisions you make, it is your choice. So I hope you have enjoyed today's episode on infantilization in autistic individuals, especially autistic women. Now, of course, episodes will still continue to be released on Sundays, but it'll be every few weeks when I have the time to put them out. So I don't really want to force myself to, I guess, keep up to a regular schedule, just because my concern is if the content is of low quality, it's not good. And I want to be able to produce good quality content. So my next episode is going to be about autism representation in media. So I want to look at mainly videos, TV shows, movies, as mentioned, and even manga comics, because I did find a manga about a child with autism and how a Japanese mother, I think, grows up with him. I forgot what the name of it is, but I have to find it. And it's one that I have been looking to read, because the latest manga I've been reading is Komi Can't Communicate, and even though it isn't specified that the main character, Komi Shuko, has autism, there are certain traits that she has that I can relate to in terms of having anxiety, like social anxiety, and I guess really poor social skills. I mean, even though it sounds like I don't have poor social skills, socializing is something I have to physically and mentally put effort into, because I'm not really a people person, which is probably ironic, especially because I do a podcast, I do a YouTube channel, and I have a job which is a customer service job essentially. So it's like I'm trying, but sometimes it's hard. But when I try, it's okay. So I hope you guys enjoy your Sunday. If you don't have work tomorrow, then rest. I know I don't have work tomorrow or Tuesday because I do have time off, and I go back to work on Wednesday, but I'll only be working for 2 days next week because I'm off on Good Friday and Easter Monday, which is great. So yay. If you do have work, get rest tonight, and until the next time, I will be signing off for today. So thank you for listening, thank you for supporting me and commenting. So until next time, bye for now.